Thanks, Bryn. Well, what a race that was, and TCR going down to the wire at Donington Park in a few weeks' time. But for now, as Bryn quite rightly says, we've got Honda Civics, more Honda Civics on the track, but this time the one-make Disc Lock Civic Cup Championship, and a partially reversed grid, and actually a decent reversal as well. The top 10 finishers from race 1 have been reversed now to form the grid for race 2. So runaway race winner Lee Deegan, after 5 victories so far this year, has now got some serious work to do from down in 10th place on the grid. It's Sam Nicolao who has inherited pole position then as a result, with Northerner David Buki alongside him. Dan Hobson had a disappointing first race, ended up in the gravel trap at Paddock Hill Bend at one point. He will be third, with Morgan Bailey fourth. Then Lewis Rose and Bruce Winfield on the third row, Jason Ballantyne and Paul Taylor on row 4. Paul Taylor was on the podium in race number 1, and so too, of course, were Daniel Reason and Lee Deegan. Deegan made the break at the start, really, and never looked back, but what will he be able to do now from 10th on the grid? Those that missed out on the reversal, Martin Diel and Max Lewis share the 6th row. Aaron Rose and Ali Camp are on row 7. Camp wants to watch more, I think, after a couple of sideways moments in race 1. Michael Winkworth and Paul McHugh are on the 8th row of the grid. Rick Shortle and Andy Hart, row 9. And Andrew Wilmot and Damien Harris, who are both retirements from the previous race, as well as Andy Hart, actually, just in front of them. 3 retirements from the previous race. Damien Harris had a difficult time with Paddock Hill Bend. It's I was going to say a love-hate relationship with Paddock Hill Bend. Actually, I think it's just a hate-hate relationship, because he had 2 spins, went off there early on, and then later on went off and nerfed the tyre wall, and that put him out of the race ultimately. So he'll be coming from the back of the grid, hopefully. I think I spotted it out there on the green flag lap, so hopefully we will have a full quota of 20 Disc Lock Civic Cup Championship cars. And yes, I can see the red and white car of Harris at the back. The first 5 minutes, probably the entire 15 minutes of this race are going to be pretty entertaining, I think, but particularly the first few laps, as those quicker drivers come from the middle of the grid. On the front row, though, the grey car is Nicolao. The white and blue is David Buki from the outside of row number 1, with the blue and pink of Daniel Hobson, possibly the pre-race favourite to try and take his second win of the year. Lights out, away they go. Good start made from Buki on the outside of row 1. Hobson's away well as well. And here come the 2 orange cars. It's been a good start by Jason Ballantyne and by Bruce Winfield, as they go either side of the slow-starting Morgan Bailey in front of them. Through Paddock, do we get them all safely through? So far, so good. Yep, they're all there still, I think, on the run-up Halewood Hill towards Druids Corner, where Buki leads the way into second position. I think that is still Nicolao in second. Round the outside is going Daniel Hobson, but he risks getting hung out to dry. And one of the orange cars, and I think that's Bruce Winfield, is into third place already. No, it's not Winfield. That is Jason Ballantyne with another rocket ship start. He came from about 30. Oh, Daniel Reason, contact there as he goes around the outside, coming out of Graham Hill Bend. Did well to save that. That was contact that he had with Daniel Hobson there into Surtees. Around the outside again goes Reason, not deterred, and he does go back through. Oh, and then on the inside of both of them goes Bruce Winfield. Fantastic. Oh, there's a puncture for Daniel Reason. Oh, and he spins into Lee Deegan, the championship leader, almost gets caught up in all of that. And Daniel Reason with a left rear puncture after that contact coming off Graham Hill Bend. And that could have caused an absolutely almighty pilot coming out of Clearways. And it is a miracle that no one else was involved in that, but it did delay Lee Deegan. The points leader ended up on the grass on the right-hand side of the road, and there were some really quick reactions there to avoid a fairly substantial bit of contact. So the order is Buki that leads the way. Ballantyne, I think, is into second now, if I look towards Druid. Yes, he is. So Ballantyne has come through from 7th to 2nd. In race 1, he went from about 13th to 6th on the opening lap. So Jason Ballantyne, whatever he's doing at the start of the races, others need to take note, because that's 2 phenomenal starts that he's made so far this weekend. Nicolao is into 3rd place, or down to 3rd place, I should say, with Bruce Winfield 4th at the line, and he appears to still be in 4th place. Then it's Lee Deegan, somehow, despite that, actually got into 5th, and I think, despite the contact and running onto the grass, he actually lost less time than some others by going up the inside out of Clearways, and that really worked out in his favour in the end. Good battles going on a bit further back here as they run side by side out of Clearways. David Buki, the race leader, the fastest lap though, is 7/10 clear of Jason Ballantyne, but then Lee Deegan sets the fastest lap down in 5th position. Lee Deegan already a 5-time winner this year. He already has a reasonably healthy championship margin, and is looking at the moment like he's going to further extend that, because if he keeps on gaining positions like this, he could get back onto the podium, and that from 10th on the grid is really, really good stuff. His nearest rival as well was Daniel Reason. So Daniel Reason, with that puncture, he's now made it into the pit lane, but that means that he will score no points potentially from this race. And all the points, therefore, that Lee Deegan can get now are beneficial, and Daniel Hobson likewise. But Hobson, who was third in the championship, well, he's dropped right down the order because he was really held up by Daniel Reason as well. So Hobson's actually down in 16th place, would you believe? He was 18th actually at the end of the opening lap. So those two making contact, and they were second and third in the championship. So Alistair Camp and particularly Jason Ballantyne could benefit hugely from this. Ballantyne was 5th in the points arriving here at Brands Hatch, but as we're seeing, he's every bit quick enough to challenge for a race victory in this second race. So Buki, Ballantyne and Nicolao the top three, but it looks like Ballantyne's actually under pressure now from Sam as they go into Druids. I'm looking out of the window at them, and there was almost a bit of contact between them. There they are, look, coming off the corner. I think there might have been a bit of a nudge there on the exit of the turn. The next orange car is Bruce Winfield, and then the points leader, Lee Deegan, the race one winner, the 4th car in that queue, 5th place overall. Then 6th place is Morgan Bailey, having started 4th. Oh yeah, there was definitely contact, wasn't there? Because look at the back of Ballantyne's car as Winfield again launches up the inside. He likes that move into clearways, and he's gone through, or nearly anyway. He should be able to complete the manoeuvre down the pit straight. But the question is, where does Lee Deegan go in all of this? Does he follow Winfield on the inside? Surely he'll have to, and he might be able to get a position out of this as well. Down to turn 1 they go, and through on the inside I think is going to go Winfield. Can the championship leader Lee Deegan follow him? He's over the curb, he's trying to prise the door open, he's got the inside line towards Druids, and it looks likely that Lee Deegan will now go into 4th position. Yes, he does. So Lee Deegan up one more place into P4. Down the hill to Graham Hill Bend they go again. And now that Winfield and Deegan have come through, are they going to be able to do anything about Jason Ballantyne, who doesn't seem to be able to go any quicker than the race leader? The lead gap is stable at just over 1 second now. Oh, actually, having said that, it went up by 3/10 on the previous lap, but before that it had been stable at 1 second. It may well be, though, that it's not the orange car of Ballantyne that David Buki sees some way off in his distance. It may be that it's the other orange car of Bruce Winfield, because Winfield is looking really racy here. Bruce was 5th place in race 1, so he's already going 2 better than that in race number 2. But he's now got one of his big championship rivals, the championship leader, Lee Deegan, right behind him. Also catching this group is Morgan Bailey. There he goes, the 26 car sideways through Paddock Hill Bend. That's beautiful to watch. Lee Deegan thinking about going up the inside of Ballantyne, and instead goes to the outside line, but needs to be careful not to leave the door open for Sam Nicolao behind to sneak through. Down into Graham Hill Bend again then. These 4 cars starting to be joined by Bailey and then Martin Diel from 11th on the grid to 7th. He's had a decent start, but Paul Taylor still down in 8th, which is where he started. And side by side, Winfield's up the inside of Ballantyne into Surtees. He's sideways. You can't overtake at Surtees, surely. He's now on the wrong side of the road, though, into clearways, and that might not have been particularly well thought through, because now Lee Deegan sees a chance to get up the inside of him. They're rubbing again on the exit of the corner as somehow Winfield manages to close the door and find a gap back in line. But that was a brave place to run side by side. They're not afraid to get stuck in, these Disc Glock Civic Cup drivers. He has another go now on the brakes into Paddock Hill Bend. Super good on the brakes is Bruce Winfield, but he needs to be careful here, because another move like that and he could end up losing ground. Lee Deegan is fishing to try and find a way past him as they all sort of run into each other going into Druids, because Ballantyne is really having to defend, and this is allowing David Buki to pull away. 2.4 seconds now his advantage, almost like we saw from Deegan in race 1. Now we're seeing David Buki take advantage of an almighty scrap for second place to pull a gap on them. Deegan's got a bit of damage now, I think, to the front of his car as well. There won't be a car with a straight body panel left after this one. Inside is looking Winfield, and too late on the brakes is Ballantyne. So Winfield, this time around, might have got the inside line through Clark Curve. Yes, he has. Ballantyne's trying to close the door, puts him onto the grass. You don't want to make contact there, guys. That was close stuff, but eventually Bruce Winfield asserts his authority. Lee Deegan, though, almost making it 3 wide to the outside. Can't take advantage of it, though, because Ballantyne is able to dive back in line in 3rd, and so it will be Winfield 2nd, then Ballantyne 3rd, 4th for Deegan, who's again getting held up now, and here comes Morgan Bailey round the outside into Druid's corner with the headlights flashing. Lee Deegan won't be having any of that, and Bailey now needs to be careful, because not far behind him is Martin Diel. In fact, Diel gets alongside, so too will Lewis Rose, that is, I think, isn't it, the next car in line? No, sorry, Diel, then Taylor, excuse me, Paul Taylor, who's at the inside. And who's the car on the outside? Oh, contact! Well, there you go. It was the 4 car that was on the outside, and now it's off the road. That is Martin Diel. So there's been some changing there, I think, because Diel had been 7th, and I think they both lost a bit of ground. But Diel, well, that car, if it survived that without damage, I was impressed. It was completely airborne through Surtees. Is there any damage on the left rear corner? He thinks not. He's carrying on. Right, leaders go through, and for the first time, I think, all race, the second place car is quicker than the first place car. Winfield was about half a tenth quicker than the race leader, but half a tenth is at least a gain now, so the gap is stable at 3 seconds between first and second. And now Ballantyne is trying to keep everybody else at bay. Now, is it still Lee Deegan fourth? Yes, it is. Lee Deegan with an increasingly dog-eared car trying to prize his way through onto the podium. Then it is Nicolao, then Bailey, then Taylor and Lewis Rose, with Lewis and Alistair Camp at the back of that little queue. Well, big queue really, which makes up half the field, it would seem. Still only just past halfway through this race as well. Lots more racing to go. It's been a typically fierce disc lock Civic Cup race here at Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit. That's a bit of a bull ring of a circuit really. Lots of tight corners where you can run right onto the rear bumper of the car in front, especially in a one-make tin-top series like this. You're always going to get a little bit of paint being traded, and we've seen plenty of that in this one already, and it's not over yet. Lee Deegan still frustratedly is stuck behind. Jason Ballantyne goes to the outside line, and again Nicolao's there to try and take advantage if there's a gap that presents itself on the inside, which briefly it looked like there might have been. Back through Graham Hill Bend again. And along the Cooper Straights behind this group there's a nice battle going on as well, as we've got the Daniel Hobson trying to regain some ground. Daniel Hobson 11th now, having been as low as 18th I think at one point. So things may be calming down for a second, but I don't think it will stay like this for much longer. With 5.5 minutes still left on the clock, it is very, very close. Look at the state of the back of Winfield's car, and he is closing in on the leader. Another 2/10 that time, so 2.5 is now the gap. It was as big as 3 seconds when he got into second place. And he's just inching towards the leader, but will he get there in time? That's the question. And the outside goes Morgan Bailey, and somehow they seem able to take that wide line into Druids but not leave the door open for the cars behind. In fact, he's having another look up the inside here into Graham Hill Bend. Does he commit? Yes, he does. And they almost rub through the apex of the corner, but the Area Motorsport car, number 65 of Sam Nicolao, stays ahead. Look at the size of this group though. 2, 4, 6, 8 or 9 cars I think this is, as one, going through Surtees. In amongst it all, championship leader Lee Deegan, but already a 4th place finish would be a nice way to round out his weekend. A win and a 4th is a good haul of points, and that will be enough for him to maintain a very healthy championship advantage going into the final few races of the season. The Civic Cup that started at Snetterton has still another 2 race meetings after this one at Silverstone and one at Donington Park, again on the TCR UK final round, as Deegan tries the outside this time at Druids. Can't make it stick though, and Ballantyne getting his elbows out here to hang on to the place. That's Alistair Camp with the recovering Daniel Hobson. So Hobson, the blue and pink car then, as I said, into 11th now after being shuffled down the order slightly a little bit earlier on. Oh, there's a bit of contact. Someone's off up the road. Who's that? That's Nicolao that's off. And he had contact with somebody. I didn't quite see who that was. Was that possibly a move that he tried to make on Deegan, or did Marcus Bailey attack him from behind? Let's see what the order is then. Anyone chopping around? Deegan's still 4th. Nicolao the only one. Oh, and Lewis Rose dropping down the order as well. So I think they're the 2 that made contact at Surtees. So Hobson now finds himself 9th place and going for 8th here over the curb through paddock. Can't get up the inside of Alistair Camp though into Druids. Lead gap, by the way, is still 2.5 seconds. Black and white warning flag for Marcus Bailey for driving standards. Now, we don't know whether that's track limits. He has potentially just had a bit of contact there through Surtees, but we assume that is a track limits warning. It's brilliant racing though, as ever, from the Civic Cup. Very popular amongst the fans. Into the pit lane is going, or into the paddock I should say, I can see is going Lewis Rose. Oh, Hobson on the inside of Alistair Camp, and there was definitely contact between those 2, but in the end no harm, no foul, because he wasn't able to complete the manoeuvre, possibly for the best. They're not afraid to just send it up the inside, are they? 3 seconds now the lead gap, half a second in, 6/10 actually taken out of David Bucky's advantage that time for Bruce Winfield, but I don't think Bruce has enough time now really, with just 2.5 minutes to go. They're short 15-minute races in the Disc Lock Civic Cup, and that was just too big a starting point, really. And it went up briefly, I think, before it started to come down. Through Graham Hill Bend goes Ballantyne with that bumper still hanging loose. That won't be helping the aerodynamics of the car particularly, but I think that's the least of his worries right now, because I think most of his attention is being directed towards the 48 car in his mirrors of Lee Deegan, the championship leader, trying to make progress, yes, but also try to stay out of trouble. I think it's really a case of self-preservation in this race. Just make sure that you bring the car home, score some decent points. Right now, the drivers ahead of him, well, David Buki is not a championship contender. Bruce Winfield could become a championship contender, potentially, but it's not right now, he's not. He is coming into the weekend, Winfield was 44 points behind Lee Deegan. And in race 1, of course, Deegan beat him anyway, so the gap is now close to 50 or so, maybe just over 50, so he doesn't really have to worry too much about Winfield. And Ballantyne, likewise, was about 42 points behind him coming into the weekend, and was only 4th in race 1 whilst Deegan won it. So Lee Deegan doesn't really have to desperately beat any of the drivers that are in front of him. Obviously, he'd like to if the opportunity presents itself, but it's not a situation where a do-or-die manoeuvre is necessary. Of course, he's feeling the pressure from Morgan Bailey, though, who we've seen is not afraid to get stuck in. So 1 minute to go then. 2 laps remain for David Buki. The lead gap back out again to nearly 3.2 seconds. I don't think that Winfield can do anything about it. 5-second penalty for Morgan Bailey. So Morgan Bailey there, the red and white car sideways over the curb, has been given a 5-second penalty. That must be for track limits. And so that takes him out of this group now, but a bit like we saw in the TCR race earlier on, even when a car gets a time penalty, they're still physically there in the queue, so they still actually could have a bearing on the outcome of other people's races, even though in reality, in actual final results, they won't be in that position. 5-second penalty for Bailey would drop him down to about 9th place, I reckon, behind Daniel Hobson, who's not been able to make any further progress. Ballantyne sideways through Surtees, but Deegan really want to commit to a 50-50 lunge at the inside. And we now go through on to what will be the final lap of racing. It's a 3-way fight for 3rd place, but realistically just a 2-way fight because the 3rd car in line has this time penalty. Ooh, and gets sideways into paddock as well. He's still pushing hard though, regardless of the penalty. Oh, Deegan with a better run out of paddock. Can't get to the inside of Ballantyne though. And then daren't go to the outside at Druids because that will leave the door open for Bailey. And the drivers may not actually be aware of the penalty if they haven't spotted the board across the start-finish line. They may not be aware of the time penalties. It's easy to miss your boards and the boards from the stewards and the marshals down there as well, because when you're racing past the start-finish line at over 100 miles an hour, nose to tail, your eyesight's not necessarily directed at the pit wall. David Buki's will be now though, because he's about to see the checkered flag, and for the first time in 2019, David Buki is going to be a winner in the Disc Lock Civic Cup. A brilliant measured drive that was for David Buki, and he comes through to take the race win, and he becomes the 6th different race winner of 2019 in what's been a very competitive season already so far. Bruce Winfield in 2nd, still winless though this year, with Jason Ballantyne in 3rd position. Those two move themselves fractionally closer now to Lee Deegan championship-wise, but Lee Deegan in 4th still scores some good championship points for that, and is going to be tricky to beat. I think 16 points will go the way of Lee Deegan, with Morgan Bailey 5th, but on corrected times he will drop down the order from that. The timing screen hasn't yet updated, but I reckon he'll be down in about 9th position or so. Paul Taylor is 6th, 7th place goes the way of Max Lewis, 8th Alistair Camp, and 9th Daniel Hobson, but those 4 drivers will likely gain an extra position once the penalty is applied for Morgan Bailey. Rounding out the top 10 though, and not likely to gain anything from that because he was more than 5 seconds behind the driver with the penalty, is Martin Diel, which is not bad actually, considering he was pointing the wrong way at Surtees early on in the race, but Diel recovered to a solid top 10 finish. Michael Winkworth was 11th from Sam Nicolao, who dropped down to 12th position after that grassy moment up at Surtees as well, which was the action spot in that race it seemed. Aaron Rose was 13th, Andrew Wilmot was 14th. He's got to the end of that time. Damien Harris 15th, Paul McHugh 16th, and Rick Shortall was the last of the finishers. We lost Lewis Rose from that contact. Andy Hart we lost as well, and Daniel Reason we lost essentially on the end of the first lap after the puncture caused by contact coming off Graham Hill Bend with one of his big rivals in the championship, Daniel Hobson. So the second and third place drivers in the championship not having a particularly good race there. 8th place for Hobson, as the penalty has now been applied for Bailey, and a non-finish for Reason. Now Reason's dropped scores. Yeah, he hadn't had a non-finish. He was dropping a 12-point score from round 2 of the championship and another 12-point score from round 6. So he gains back 12 points, essentially, does Daniel Reason, because one of those now ceases to be a drop score, and a DNF does instead. So not all doom and gloom for Reason. He essentially scored 12 points out of that race, and if he has another DNF, he'll get another 12 points, but he'd much rather finish higher up the order. You can see how that system can be sometimes used to your advantage there. If you're running down in 10th place or something and you're going to score maybe 6 points, retire the car and all of a sudden you're scoring 12. I know it's not quite as simple as that, but the drop score system can be played to your advantage if you're quick on your feet, but generally speaking the drivers don't tend to get into those sort of tactics. It's there basically at club level in particular, so that if a driver for whatever reason can't afford to enter around or gets a car that's damaged and has to miss around, or maybe miss around due to other commitments, they can at least just count them as their drop scores, and it doesn't necessarily immediately count them out of championship contention. So we've got one more race to go, by the way. Don't go anywhere. The BRSCC Fiesta Championship with MRF tyres is coming up next for their third and final race of the weekend. Their first two have been fantastic races, so we expect the third one to be equally as entertaining. But in the meantime, I believe we're ready to head down into the pit lane now with Bryn Lucas and our podium finishers.
You know, it might be easy to get hold of drivers after a race, but sometimes they just disappear. But that was a pretty well-earned second for you.
Yeah, it was quite easy, to be honest with you. There was quite a lot of carnage, obviously, on the first lap. Managed to stay out of all that, and then, yeah, getting second, and then left all the rest of them behind us to start battling, and it made it quite a easy second place, really, yeah.
I mean, you're supposed to make it sound harder. You're supposed to big it up.
Obviously, it's very close racing. Obviously, with all the cars being the same power, same weight, and that kind of thing, it is very close racing. Situations like that do give you a little bit of breathing room, but it's not very often it happens, so when it happens it's quite nice.
How hard is it hunting down these guys? I mean, David put on a really good show, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think he finished, was it 9th in the first race, I think. You know, after qualifying we had more pace, but in that second race I couldn't do anything about it, so yeah, it's hard, definitely.
Well done. It was a well-earned, even if it was easy, it was a well-earned second place there. We'll try and grab more of the drivers if we can, but the cars are out now on track, just doing their warm-up laps. So let's go third. Let's speak to Jason, because although David did an amazing thing, Jason, if you can jump in for just a few seconds while the cars are just warming up here. Earlier on, 13th to 4th, you were sort of the unsung hero of the day, but then a third for you. You must be pretty happy, really, when you look back at your day's work.
Yeah, after qualifying 13th this morning and then getting a 4th and a 3rd, it's not bad, yeah. Quite happy with that.
We were watching it, and because you finished 4th, I thought, I can't quite speak to you, but I'm so glad we had. Race 1, race 2, very, very different affairs for you.
Yeah, totally different. Race 1, had quite a lot of ground to make up, got behind Bruce, got past Bruce, got up to 4th, couldn't really do a lot more from there. Race 2, knew I had to get a good start again, so got another decent start. I think I was up to 2nd behind Dave, and then me and Bruce touched into the hairpin. Bruce got past us, and then I just had to defend from Lee all the way. It was tough.
It was amazing. Congratulations. We'll quickly grab one quick word from David if we can. If we get one word, because the cars are about to come round, so the shortest interview you've ever done. Well done. How are you feeling after that?
Well, I don't know what to say. I'm over the moon with that. Yeah, really happy. Cars come together. Massive thanks to DH Racing for their help after the issues we had in Club Sport Trophy. To come away and get a first place today, it's absolutely fantastic.
Well done. Go and get your trophy. Congratulations.
It's a big thanks to all my sponsors, because obviously can't be here without them. There's M-Tech Brakes, Impression Communication, Exol, Chemedex and My Rider.
Well done. Good stuff.